I'm going to take Tampa Bay, catching 8.5 on the road against the Chiefs. I believe this is a Monday night game. 8.5 just feels like a lot of points. There were a couple of games on here that kind of jumped out to me. One of them is one of your picks, to be honest with you. We might have a little more dissension as well. But 8.5 for Tampa Bay. I know offensively they've got some issues with the injuries and things like that. That being said, they came out and played a pretty good game last week against Atlanta. They obviously didn't win that game, but the offense looked better than maybe I expected. They're pretty efficient, and they're a well-run unit. You know, you kind of talk about, I guess maybe they're like a little bit better version of the Colts, where there's nothing overly impressive, but the consistency and the level of adultness, generally speaking, is pretty high there. On the other side, very much adults, the Chiefs, if you will. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, I think it's pretty much in cruise control right now. There is a reason I liked them a couple weeks ago in Kansas City. I think they have the ability to turn it on when they want. I still think they're kind of working through things or at least putting it in cruise control. And I think that's backed up by some of the stats. I think they have, 2 wins this season by 7 or more points. And they're 7-0, so 5 wins by less than that. And then 6 wins by 8 points or more last year, including the playoffs. So this is pretty consistent that we've been talking about this in years past. They not that they play with their food. I just think they know what they have to do to win games, and they don't really care about style points. They are 4-5-1 since New Year's Day 2023. That's playoffs and regular season in the favor of 8 or more. 0-2-1 against the spread in their last 3. Since the start of last season, they've scored 27 points or more just twice in those games, of 7 games. And it's a small sample size, but Tampa Bay 2-0 against the spread is an 8-point dog or bigger since the start of last season. Again, small sample size, but we're going with what it kind of backs up what my mind perceives the Bucs and the Chiefs to be. The Bucs kind of are scrappy, play above their weight, and the Chiefs just want to win games and move on to next week.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't even mean that in a negative way either.
Last week it was Kansas City laying 7.5 against Vegas.
I thought it was even higher. That was up to like 9.
Was it maybe a little higher? But that was a game where I kind of I wanted to blindly take the points.
Yeah.
For a lot of the reasons you mentioned, and like they seem to get there.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be pretty, and you never really it never feels like it's in the. Like last week, it never felt like they were going to lose that game or anything, but you're like, there's a chance that Vegas sneaks in the back door, and sure enough, they did. And now I look, and I like Tampa Bay a lot more than I like Vegas, right? Like, I'm not out on Tampa Bay. Like, I know, like, the injuries where, everybody just immediately wrote them off, but in that division, I don't know. Like, aside from Atlanta, and Atlanta has had its share of issues, like, Atlanta I feel like is just beat up on bad teams, bad defenses in particular. Like, I'm not writing off Tampa Bay in the South.
To that point, I guess somewhat to that point, the Bucs have played the toughest schedule so far in the NFL this season. They're 4 wins: Washington, at Detroit, Philly, and at New Orleans. 2 of those are really impressive. They got them very early in the season, so it's a little swayed. But then the losses to Denver, a loss that doesn't look as bad as every week passes. 2 to Atlanta. They've already been swept by Atlanta. One of those was in overtime in Baltimore.
They had to have that one last week. They let that one slip away.
Like I said, handle themselves pretty well in all of those. That's one last trend or whatever, if you want to call it that. BetMGM had this. Mahomes, 18-25-3 against the spread as a favorite of 7 or more in his career. Against the NFC in those situations, 2-7. So I think they handled familiar opponents a little bit better. Mayfield as a road dog of 3.5 or higher in his career, 15-7 against the spread. So it just jumped off the page. 8.5 feels like a lot for a team that deserves some respect for what they've been able to do despite some injuries and things like that. So
okay, we're gonna blend a couple of those things together for my next pick, my 2-unit pick. You mentioned numbers jumping off the page. This is probably one. This might be where we have a little bit of dissension in this pick. Fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I forget what it is. But
so Baltimore, I'm going to lay the 9.5 at home against the Broncos, who you also touched on. Who would you say 5-3?
Yeah. I mean,
wild.
They suck, but they're 5-3.
So, yeah, this is a number that jumps out, but I'm comfortable laying this for a couple of reasons. I do think Denver's defense is maybe due for a regression here, at least as it relates to this week. The quarterbacks that Denver has beaten this season: Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, the combination of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, Aaron Rodgers, who we just got done dumping on, and Baker Mayfield, who I actually think is okay. Lamar Jackson, by far the best quarterback they've faced.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, see, the issues with Baltimore has been they've been pretty susceptible through the year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Bo Nix takes advantage of that, or the Denver offense takes advantage of that.
Probably not.
The quarterbacks that Baltimore has faced, which I think skews their numbers a little bit: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, and Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew. So whatever, the top real 4 or 5 of those are legit. So I think these two teams are just in very different weight classes. I think you're going to see that this week. This feels like one of those games that Baltimore comes back off last week's loss, which I think we were both on the right side of that.
Yeah.
I think that was just a bad spot for them. But I think they get right this week, take advantage of the rookie quarterback matchup. Yeah, and I think we get back to we see why Lamar is now among the MVP favorites. Yeah, I feel like you like Denver though. Probably.
You make a compelling case. Yeah, it's just 9.5 points is a lot for what I think is a good defense. It is. This is a big test for them. Like the schedule says what it says. If the defense is real though, like I think it's probably the best unit in this game. Maybe
Baltimore's offense is pretty good.
It's fine.
It's fine. I mean, I'm just saying it's pretty good. That quarterback's pretty good. That running back, pretty good. At Deontay Johnson now, I think that is that's a move that could make an impact in that offense. Good route runner, move the sticks kind of guy.
Baltimore's offense, number 1 in the NFL by DVOA. Denver's defense, number 5. So it's closer than maybe I thought when I said that. I'm just putting it out there for conversation's sake. Yeah, I just think 9.5 is a lot. So.
It is. The other thing that from a Denver standpoint, would they play in Carolina last week? So you're going
are they
east,
going back
to west, now back to east to another 1 o'clock game. A lot of travel in there, so some weird stuff going on too, especially when you have a rookie quarterback. I just Denver's a weird team. Like you throw out the 5-3 and it's jarring. So here's another way to come at this. In terms of the AFC West, I feel like beyond the Chiefs, there's the second tier of Denver and the Chargers. Like which team? Because the Chargers have been kind of whatever too, but they're sitting at 4-3. So, what do you make of those two teams? Who's better in the short term and the long term?
The Chargers and who? The Broncos?
Yeah,
I think the Chargers are better. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm still kind of toying with it. Just construction zones,
like ghosts and goblins.
Yeah,
just making all sorts of noises in here.
I wasn't gonna say I think the Chargers are better because I think the quarterback and the coach are better. It's a little closer with the coach, obviously. I think that, and their defense has been elite. So I am more or less waiting for life to catch up to the Broncos, maybe. And I do think the Chargers project better as the season goes on, and they get a little more comfortable and familiar with each other in the system and all that stuff.
Yeah,
assuming they stay healthy.
It's just interesting how you have the one quarterback who is probably among the 5, 6, 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and one who is just a rookie with just breaking onto the scene, and somehow you arrive at the same place.
Sure.
The exact same place.
It's just sports.
Yeah. Amazing how that happens.
Yep.